There we go. There's
Hello,
Mike.
everyone.
Hello, Mike, our faithful attendee. Appreciate that.
All right, well, just give a second to, the Outlook bell rang, and we're gonna let everyone take a second to come in, and then we'll get going. We have a big crowd this month, so we'll give it some time. All right, well, we have a good group, and if they're late, well, they can just listen to the recording, or if you want to listen to it again, there's always that available. Or if you're like, this is such an awesome session, I want to share it with people because sharing is caring. By all means, please share it out with other members of your team. We love to have new members coming on every month. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome you to this month where we're talking about all things lead gen. So what's working? I know everyone's probably has some burning questions that they're going to put in the chat for me, and so that we can ask our panelists as well. And I want to say thank you and a huge shout out to Women in Dynamics. This is an organization that's near and dear to my heart. I've been in the channel now for 20 years, and I remember being the only female in the room at some of these tech things. So now that I see sessions where we're primarily women and keep pushing it, I think that is really awesome to see, but we still have work to do, but more on that later. So I'd like to introduce our fellow panelists today. Brandon, how about we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am Brandon Steck. I'm VP of Demand Generation for True Commerce based in the Chicago area, currently in the Pittsburgh area at our headquarters office, but which is why I'm working off of my laptop camera. You can barely see me, but we'll deal. But I've been with the company almost 2 years and have been in the marketing space for a little over 11 years. Previously worked in the sports industry, so made a huge pivot into marketing, but happy to share any insights I can today. As at True Commerce, we do have a lead gen engine that is constantly trying to robustify, constantly change, and invent words like robustify.
I will see how many times I can squeeze that in here so that it becomes our
It's
word.
one of my favorite ones. I invented it myself.
It's all yours. You get full credit for it. Nicole, why don't you tell us a bit about you?
Hi, I'm Nicole Gronke. I am a demand generation analyst over at Epicor. I'm based out of our Minneapolis office and coming up on 3 years with the company, but in marketing for longer. Who wants to count at this point? But yeah, and yeah, excited to be here and chat with like-minded people.
Yeah, no, and last but definitely not least, Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Sherry. I'm the Director of Marketing at Western Computer, based outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Over 15 years of marketing experience overall, over 9 of which have been in the channel, which is very hard to believe, and 8 of them at Western. So thanks for having me.
We are happy to have all of you and for you guys to share your learnings and all your insights on lead gen, because I think everyone in the channel, we kind of do our own thing, but how do we benchmark? Are we doing things right or not? So looking forward to hearing about all of those things today. So let's start off with from the beginning. So do you guys have targets? How many leads per month? How do you guys do those types of calculations? So Amanda, I'll start with you.
I think it's really important to kind of start with your business goals first and then backtrack from there. This year, we have a goal of an X percentage growth over last year. So when you analyze how many net new names we had, how many turned into MQLs, how many turned into SQLs, and how many turned into ops, you basically need to increase that to fit your goal for this year. I think it's important to track it overall, but it's also, I track it by month too, because there's a lot of seasonality that's involved. I thought that our highest converting month would be October or November, right after Summit, which we'll probably talk about last year's Summit soon. But we actually had really high conversion rates within like May and July, which is kind of surprising to me when you think about, where people are on vacations and when they're evaluating an ERP system. So I think as long as you're tracking everything and you can definitively pinpoint it, I think the goal for me this year overall is to increase our MQL to SQL conversion rate and increase our net new names into MQL rate. Because we know I track how long it takes for a first touch to come in until they hit, until they become known. And then I also track how long until they hit our CRM system. So my entire goal for this year is to really accelerate that time and get them over into our system, get them known quicker, and then get them over to a sales rep quicker as well.
I think that's super cool. And I'm going to use everyone can take a drink now. It really is a science and an art when we're talking about lead generation. Like it's a lot more math than people think it is. And it's a lot more, like you do have some method to the madness in the background, and tracking as much as you can makes it easier the year after to be like, okay, that's great if we want to grow by X%, but in order to do that, we need X number more leads and then probably X amount of more money to get those things. So that is very cool to find out how you track, and also the length of time. I think we all work in the ERP. We know that it's long, but what does long really mean? Those are all super insightful things. So, Nicole, what do you guys do from regard to coming up with your number and stuff?
Yeah, similarly, starts with the business goal, and of course, every year we want to do more. Sometimes that's a little easier said than done. But yeah, we align really closely with sales to make sure that we're providing them what they need, and we're looking at last year's numbers, we're looking at the budget numbers, what is feasible, and we kind of work our way backwards. Where do we need to get to? How are we going to get there? What tools do we have to get there? And so we create KPI metrics all the way down the funnel. So we've got, raw leads, like how many do we absolutely need to get into the funnel, and then how many do we need to make sure they progress down the funnel to get those sales that we need. And yeah, I would say there's seasonality. Epicor has several different product lines, so the different industries have different targets and different seasonality. The product line that I work on specifically, we see a big uptick at the beginning of the calendar year. It's kind of like, oh, fresh new budgets, everyone's checking things out. And so, we kind of base our targets with a bit of a bell curve on that in terms of our financial calendar. And so on average, we're looking for a certain number of leads, but that's going to fluctuate based on the month.
Yeah, and I think we should underestimate seasonality too, because like Amanda, we used to like the close of the year, people trying to spend all their money, and that's really shifted to, okay, when do we have time to implement, and when do we have money to implement? Because how people look at these projects has changed drastically over the last couple of years. So I think by looking at it monthly, like you said, we want to get the most bang for our buck. And if like we have a month where we don't have as many leads, well, we know we're going to make up for it then, or we are going to have to double down later. So keep that to robustify your marketing channel. So which works better for you? Inbound, outbound? What are your percentages like? Brandon, how about we start with you?
Yeah, so obviously with measurement, we are looking at that pretty much daily. And the big thing for me is we focus heavily on driving whatever is going to work best for driving pipeline. As Nicole and Amanda mentioned, we're aligned heavily with sales and driving business through pipeline. So for us, inbound is going to drive more pipeline. Outbound is typically to support what might miss, what might be not enough in that month. We've continued to pivot less on the focus on MQL and what's going to drive SQLs. I could drive thousands and thousands of MQLs, but if none of them are quality, it doesn't matter. It is so important to have that focus on quality. So conversion rate is higher on inbound. It's a fact that we all know. And we want to focus on that. So we're spending a lot of time making sure that we're getting the right kind of inbounds, and we continue to really make sure that that math formula is working out properly. But also inbound is more successful for us because we are continuing to advance how we're doing things to drive that channel. We are investing more in outbound because this day and age, you can't rely on people just showing up at the door. That's not happening necessarily all the time. We'd love that to happen, and we're a company that has been, grown off of what's come to us. Many companies are, and then in the tech space, we all know that's something that's gone on. If you've been in the space long enough, you've seen that. So there's been a shift where inbound and outbound, the formula has changed, but there's still a heavy reliance on getting that inbound channel going.
Yeah, and I think it definitely fluctuates with the time, but it's interesting that like what goes around comes around, and at one point like outbound was a completely money suck, and you're like, no, we're starting to see it come back a bit. So yeah, no, that's good for all those on the call and thought that outbound, like, no, we scrapped it all off. Have any questions, put them in the chat about that. We're here for that too. All things lead gen today. So Nicole, what does your mix look like, and what are kind of some of the things you're doing in this lead gen
It's
world?
definitely inbound heavy for sure. Outbound is a piece of it. I mean, you got to have a mix. And our BDRs like to stay busy, so outbound is always an element of their outreach. But inbound, by far and large, is the majority, and that's where we see the most going into pipeline and the most traction and really the best ROI. I think outbound works when you get super specific. Make sure that you know your market and your target demographic, and make sure that you're not casting too wide of a net. Otherwise, it's just wasted time. But yeah, I think it's important to have a mix.
Oh, that's cool. No, and interesting that, yeah, we have to, it's the lesser of two evils, or sometimes you got to do it even though you're like, is it really helping you? But I think by being super targeted, that really does help hone in on the message, and maybe there's keywords there that people will pick up that they wouldn't normally do when you're speaking to them on the phone or something like that. So
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that there's such a blurred line between the two because we are in such a digital age and everything is contributing to the next. So I don't think it's as clear perhaps as it used to be on what comes in and when someone first heard about you. I definitely track it, and I have my calls per lead for everything, but I try to look at it all as, just because we sponsor Summit, that doesn't mean that this is the first time they've ever heard of us, or they haven't already been to our site anonymously, or they haven't already seen us on ERP software blog. So I think you also have to look at how everything's working together, and what is driving more SQLs overall.
That is super important. I think we are so focused on the things that we can track that we don't put all together all of the other pieces that we can do there. And no, very important. And that, PR, like, where have you heard about us? Like, where was that like random touch point a couple years ago? Sometimes projects start and then get put on hold and come back. Not like that ever happens, but just, sometimes it does. And then it allows you to kind of not forget or close your eyes to some of the other stuff that you got to do, even though some people might not think it works, but it stays there in the back of everybody's mind. So let's continue on with numbers and talk metrics. So Amanda, I know this is your favorite topic, so how about you kick it off for us?
Sure. Where do I start? Is there a specific question to answer? I mean, I can talk about this all day long. Going beyond vanity metrics.
Yeah,
Yes,
going beyond vanity metrics.
So I think it's super important. Like an example that I have is years ago working with a vendor that was running Google Ads. They were looking at how many clicks and how many conversions they thought we were getting, and they were, like patting themselves on the back, like, this is great, we're bringing in a lot for you. But then when you're able to track and you look at the lead quality of some of the campaigns, we were finding that we were spending upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 on a campaign throughout the year that just brought in disqualified leads, like immediately disqualified leads. And it's like, well, we need to do that analysis. We need to determine, like, that's not the best use of our money at all if it's just bringing in disqualified leads. So I think it's super important to go beyond just clicks, conversions from Google Ads, and really connect that into your CRM system and seeing what is driving opportunities and what is driving the SQLs that hopefully will turn into opportunities. And knowing what your SQL to ops conversion rate and knowing what your win rate is really helpful. I think it also goes back to tracking your cost per lead overall across all initiatives, but then also siloing it into one specific initiative to determine that, and tracking that regularly to determine, like, hey, this certain type of initiative cost per lead jumped. What can we do to bring that down? And reaching out and brainstorming and finding out ways, because no one wants to lose you as a customer at all. So most of the time I'm finding people are super willing to work with you and to help you meet your goals. So if you can provide those metrics when you go to them, instead of just on a whim, like, oh, hey, I feel like this isn't really working out for me. But if you can go with concrete data and say, there's been a shift that I've seen. This is around when it happened. This is the change I'm seeing. What can we do to drive more attention or more leads or more conversions here to help fill that pipeline with MQLs and ultimately SQLs? So I think a lot of people get wrapped up in vanity metrics, but I don't even look at them anymore by any means. I'm basically doing all my reporting in Power BI because I have a custom marketing measurement report that connects my Google Analytics data, my marketing automation data, and my CRM data into Power BI. So I can see the very first touch point of all of our opportunities that were created. So I'm understanding, like, what is driving those SQLs and those ops. And I also do all my reporting in CRM. So I hardly even look at my marketing automation reporting outside of specific campaigns.
That's very cool. And I think all of us are like, so how do we get a Power BI report like that? I think that's super cool that you have been able to be like, look, let's not look at vanity anymore. Let's really focus on what's important. Brandon, you mentioned it too. Like, you're like, we want to increase the number of SQLs because, yeah, MQLs are fun, but to Amanda's point, if they're just going to disqualify, well, we're throwing money out the window, and whatever budget we have, that's precious to us. Another question I had. Oh, sorry, Brandon, go for it.
Yeah, can I add one thing there? So, like Amanda, I also am using Power BI, and I think the key thing is bringing the data together. So we have these tools to say, I got this lead here. Where did it go? You really need to look at timelines, because I think attribution is one of our greatest challenges. And attribution is the life cycle of a lead. If we talk about the interactions, so as an ISV, as someone who works with partners, and there might be interaction points where Amanda's team is actually interacting with a lead that we're working on together. We have to know those interaction points, because we together are maybe bringing a deal to the table that is influence. And that's actually something we're tracking in our partner marketing channel, as well as my digital channel, as well as my event channel. And I need to have all those points together, but I want to attribute that value, and that cost allocation is important. So we look at cost per lead because the board sometimes asks about that. And that's one of the points that is important. We report our MQLs because, yes, that's requested of us. But when I look at the value of a lead or an opportunity, I really look at the opportunity value and try to calculate out how often did that get to the fruition that we wanted. We have deals going to pipeline that we have to record that it went into pipeline. because we want to know that that came to the table, but was that actually a good opportunity? And we work closely with sales so we can get those things tracked properly. I highly recommend, having that data examined on your team, and Power BI is one of the great tools out there to do that, but there are ways to do it in Excel and just get a little into the weeds. I love data. I'm a nerd for it, and I started doing it in Excel. You don't have to have Power BI to do that. We have grown to that. I'm happy to be there because Excel is a starting point, but you can do that in the basic level of, I take my data out of the CRM first, get it together with what I have, and it gets you across, some of the different finish lines and milestones that you need to get to. I highly recommend looking at that data in very different slices.
And I like that call out that even if you don't have your fancy Power BI report, start somewhere, start having that, like building that attribution model, because that'll help you know where you're getting the most bang for your buck and where to double down later. And no, I think a lot of us still have our Excel spreadsheets somewhere. I won't lie, I have a couple, that are my favorites as well. So don't knock it. And I think it helps you know how to design your Power BI later, because you won't use your Power BI if it doesn't really work for you. So you need to know the nitty-gritty first. So I almost recommend starting in Excel, so you know where to start with all of that. And
Power BI is just a fancier Excel sheet, just for the record.
You have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. You have to know your data, know your numbers, start somewhere.
Yep.
It takes years to graduate, where at least for me, it took years and a lot of budget to get and connect and have a custom report like I have. So,
and sometimes headcount.
No, so everyone, if you don't have your Excel spreadsheet yet, start now. For whoever else, attribution is something that you're having a challenge with. Ask any other questions on how they started doing it, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you with that. Also, Amanda, you brought it up that you work with a third party in regards to helping you with your inbound. What about, does people on the call too, are you guys working with a third party? Do you have the internal team to do it? What kind of support do you have to build that out? Because it is constantly changing. I'm with Amanda. It's hard to stay always up to date on it. So I don't know, Brandon and Nicole, if you're using outside third parties, or if you're doing it all internally when it comes to helping you with your inbound lead gen.
We do a bit of both. So we've got like our paid media team in-house acts as kind of our in-house agency. They coordinate with an SEM organization that kind of handles the nitty-gritty day-to-day, going in and adjusting Google bids and whatnot. But then they assist us as kind of our the bridge for the strategy and the goals. So it's a bit of both. Epicor is a huge global company, so we've got a lot of team members that do a lot of things, but it's still a big company, so we need help every now and again. And yeah.
So to also address the third party, so for SEO, we just recently brought it internal. We were using an agency, and full transparency, we let them go for various reasons. It was an agency that I would have endorsed over the last 6 years. I would have brought them anywhere, and I decided I was the one who pushed to let them go. So there are some changes in agencies where you have to watch, what's going on, make decisions in your current business state. Don't just stick with something because you've always done it. I will highly recommend every 6 months, every 3 months, auditing their work. So on the SEO side, which is a huge portion of inbound efforts, we made some shifts there. We handle our paid search through some consulting, some internal. We have a lot of expertise internally. We don't have as big of a team, but we do have a digital team to handle a lot of that. Digital is a big piece of the inbound side of it. And then obviously BDRs are very valuable in any aspect when it comes to inbound and outbound.
I think that's good. Like Amanda, you said it too. that you have to kind of test them every once in a while, or push them, or question what they're doing, because we all get a little complacent, or it's easy for them to jump to the next most interesting thing when you know something is going right. So I think we should all not be afraid to question the status quo. And do we bring it internally, or do we look for something else? And everyone, put that on your list. And when you do your quarterly business reviews with your agencies, if that's who you're working with. And Trisha has a question too. How do you know what third parties are trustworthy? Does anyone
Ask
have?
for references.
Oh my goodness. There's so many lessons learned here about
Yeah.
going down the wrong path of 2 different SEO agencies that I've used, blindly following them. And I made it a point after, I should have done this after the first, but after the second, I think I was still early in my career and learning. After the second agency steered me wrong, I kind of made an oath to myself that I would always have a good enough baseline knowledge to question what they were telling me, and not just be like a yes, yep, we'll do that, yep. So for SEO, I'll attend SEO conferences, I'll read SEO articles, Google makes updates all the time, I'll read them, I'll ask for what's changing in the SEO landscape, because if they don't know, that's a red flag that they're not staying up to date on things. Asking about their relationship with Google, and if they're a Google partner. I mean, we work in the Microsoft space, so we know about having a relationship with Microsoft, how that's super beneficial. For them, having a great relationship with Google is also very beneficial. Holding them accountable and going beyond vanity metrics. That may be a hill I die on, but I don't care if they tell me about page views. I don't care if they tell me about what the conversions look like to them. I care about what it looks like in the reports that I'm sending them. I have biweekly reports that are coming from my marketing automation system that removes all of the personal identifiers. So it's within data compliance. And it will just like the time of the conversion, the lead quality, the lead status, and I send them reports and I ask them how they've analyzed it and how they're using that information to guide their changes and what changes they're making on a regular basis.
To add to that, I have very specific questions that I ask any vendor, and then I focus on what are they actually trying to sell me. If they're focused on getting access to my systems, or they're focused on their integrations, and they're not focused on my value and what I can gain, that also tells me that they don't know what they're doing. The other side of it is I look for a vendor that can show me their skill set, that will do samples, that will do work as a test. That brings value to me initially before the contract's signed. And SEO agencies have changed rapidly over the last 7 years. If they've gotten too big for their britches, it'll show very quickly. There are some out there that grew very rapidly during the pandemic and through working from home, and they have hired people that are more junior than their roles. And you should ask, what does their team look like? Who will be working on your account? And if they start to name a lot of people, that should be a red flag.
Those are all good ones. One I would also add is a firm, like, to know they're trustworthy is they're not afraid to say no to you. Like, not every idea that you have may be a good one. And for them to not just be like, yeah, sure, we can do that. If they are worth their salt, they'll be like, nah, girl, like, you are way off, or that doesn't make sense, or we recommend this. So people who always say yes, I would kind of go back to like the question critically why they would always say yes to something, or just staying up to date with stuff. So if you need any actual names, Trisha, we can, you know how to find us on LinkedIn. I'm sure we all have a list of go and no go that we can point you towards as well, if you like. So moving on from that one, what is the most effective tactic that you've had for inbound marketing? So Nicole, why don't you kick us off with that one?
Oh, I should have reflected a little bit more on this one.
Or just what are some of the things you do? How about that? You don't have to.
Yeah, I would say
Yes.
it's give and take. Some channels have a higher conversion rate but a higher cost per lead. So is that the most effective use of our dollar? Maybe, maybe not. So I would say a lot of the well-performing channels that work for us are, organic SEO, kind of that passive, the website's always on. But then also software evaluation sites, somewhere that a prospect can see what customers actually think of our software, and come in that way. You know, paid
I like
is
that.
paid is also a channel that, it's always on, it's always performing. So it's high volume, decent conversion rate. Whereas like things like trade shows are maybe hit or miss. Maybe they're more for brand awareness than actual conversion. Maybe you get that one deal, or maybe you see somebody in person where they're already in the sales process. So I think it there's a lot of play into what qualifies as good.
And maybe I wasn't specific enough with my question either. I think your point to being like, what are our objectives? Like, it might be a higher cost per lead, but they convert more, or I think all of that comes into play, or we're trying to get into a new market, so we know that our cost is going to be higher because we have to spam more. And I mean spam in the most loving marketing-esque way possible, but we have to get ourselves out there more. So I think you're right. Like, what is our initial objective, and what is our goal, and what is our business goal? And we're already going full circle 33 minutes into the call, but I think that shows that it really depends on what you're trying to get out of it. And Brandon, what have you noticed in regards to what are your most effective picks?
Yeah, Nicole and I are aligned on what's always on. That's a given. We want to have traffic through the website. SEO is super crucial. One of the things that I'll throw in there is kind of a twist. We've been seeing more success is what I would call a layered content play. So you get your content downloads, you get some good traffic through organic or paid, either one, and someone downloads a relatable content resource. Let's say it's a downloadable white paper, and we'll add in a more intentional demo request as the second stage of their interaction. We know that people are doing more research before they get on the phone with us, where 70% of the research is done. So we've added that next step of, do you want a demo now? And that actually works a lot more now than it used to. So we're getting enterprise level leads through that process of they'll download a white paper, and then on the thank you page is the option to get started with a demo, get started with a conversation. We don't obviously push pricing. We push more of the enterprise level approach, a consultation type approach. And that is a more effective lead because those tend to be people who are in that research mode. And then as they're researching, they're like, you know what, it would be worthwhile to just talk. And that thought process has led us to do that more as we put out more content. Content is obviously something we know has been flooding the marketplace. If you're doing gated content, you're not the only one. If you're not doing gated content, you might be the only one. At this day and age, it is crucial to stand out. And one of the ways we've tried to stand out is to continue to find ways to engage the folks that are, downloading our resources. So that is one of the ways we've gotten intentional leads with inbound intent to get over to our BDR team to convert. And we found that those convert to an SQL rather rapidly. So that has been an effective way we've managed inbounds, where we get lots of content downloads. More of those are higher quality leads now because of that. Events are, everyone's saying events are back. Events are higher intent. We are doing well, but we found in our space, if we attend events that are maybe ancillary or events that we know our customers will be, but maybe aren't expecting us to be there all the time, we'll do better. We We don't necessarily always need to be next door to our competitor to do well at an event, but we'll be at those events too.
I love the don't be ashamed to like ask for your next step right after the first one is done. I think at one point we were like, oh no, we need to give them time, let it like absorb. Like, no,
Yeah,
like why not?
absolutely giving them
I
time.
like
If they
that.
want a demo, it's right here.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, no, I have definitely taken a mental note of that one because I can't do two things at once and write and present at the same time, but we'll definitely be bringing that one back. So it is already time for our commercial break. So this group chat is being highlighted with thanks to the Women in Dynamics. For those who are in the Dynamics community and haven't heard of it before, it brings together the entire community, regardless of gender, age, experience. They're talking about women, but it doesn't matter what your background is. And becoming a sponsor is a great opportunity to promote your brand, share your content, and really become an advocate for diversity in our community. I think, especially with lead gen, we have to become able to talk to a whole lot of different people, and they want to know about us. And I think this is a great way to do it. This year, and the pun not intended, they have started the this framework where this is an us thing and not a they thing. So this is really for everyone, girls, gals, none of the above, all of the above. Please go, and I ask you to sign the pledge at womenindynamics.org. If you're going to Directions North America, they always have fun cocktail events and luncheons and all that stuff. Get to know the other people in the community. It really is a great way to start really learning, exploring, dipping your toe in the D&I framework, and they'd be more than happy to talk to you more about it. So big shout out to them, and please go support. Or Women in Technology. It is, International Women's Month. So go girls. Let's try to get more of us into the tech. And for you guys out there, continue to be allies. We appreciate it. So back to a regular scheduled program and a lead generation. So what was your most surprising lead gen campaign? And Amanda, how about you kick us off? I think you had a good one.
Well, I have one example that's surprising, not surprising, and one example that is kind of surprising that goes back to what others were saying. SEO for sure is kind of the top performer at a really low cost per conversion when you're just filtering it by monthly SEO retainers. So I think I was more surprised of how many leads it brought in overall, because you're spending all of this. I mean, we do spend time on SEO in general, but I was under the impression that they were converting more on other tactics. I don't really know why, but I guess it kind of all makes sense when I think about it. So surprising, lowest cost per lead, SEO, love SEO, but long labor of love to also get there too, right? It's not as one-off, as easy as a win as other things may be. But the most surprising, not surprising, it was Summit 2023 for us. We decided to give away, or having sweepstakes, sweepstakes for a Ford Escape. And we had an entire theme of Escape to the Cloud. And we had a car in our booth, and we had people enter to win our sweepstakes, and we gave away the car at the end. So I wasn't surprised on how many new names it brought in, because again, I track those separately. So net new names that I need to nurture along. There was hundreds of them, all net new. I wasn't surprised there. I was surprised that for SQLs, for the amount of people that the sales team spoke to, our SQLs from the conference increased by 76%. So a lot of people came to our booth also after sessions. So again, that like multi-factor, things aren't as siloed. Did they come to the session because they heard that we had a car, or did they go to the session because they were just interested in the topic, and then they came back and interacted with the team, and then they entered the sweepstakes? So lots of different questions there, but I think having the sweepstakes, having a strong presence at the event, also having a lot of speakers and a lot of staff in the booth that were ready to talk to people that had questions and properly answer their questions all came through, and we had a 76% increase just on SQLs.
Wowzers. So everyone will have a car at the next summit. But I think
It's gonna be a parking lot.
I think what like everyone should take away this, you didn't just rely on the booth itself. You had all these other things going on at the event that kind of brought them all together, and that we've had sessions on events, so we won't dive too much into it, but like you had your money maker or your prize thing, but you're like, okay, well, we need to have this and that and the other thing. I think bringing it all together is also a key success factor there. So
Yeah.
very cool.
We also, also for Summit, we have a really large customer presence too. So we have a lot of customers there. So that can also, with, you know, hallway conversations after sessions, contribute to people stopping by our booth. So just word of mouth, right? Social proof. Everyone loves social proof.
Very, very true. And Brandon, what about you? What are some of your most surprising lead gen campaigns, flops, whatever? Let us have it.
You made me follow the car. I mean, we didn't give away a car.
You know, not all of us can. Not all of us can.
But so we recently, you know, we've been looking at our outreach campaigns, and there's not been a lot of talk yet about outbound and how we can drive more by doing outreach, by doing email campaigns. And do email campaigns even work? So we did have a team member who just kind of on a whim said, I'm going to write a campaign that's themed off of this somewhat famous musician named Taylor Swift. I haven't heard of her, but I heard she's a big deal. There's a lot of media around her and a football player that I do know because I'm a Chiefs fan. And we decided we're going to have a little fun. She wrote these email campaigns to do a play on our product and how it fit and how it could help. This was very catchy, right? Very much a let's have a little fun, pick a few people off the list and see if anyone will reply. And it was sent from her email as kind of a BDR, and that was a campaign she put together just after the holidays. And we thought, okay, if no one replies, it was just a fun attempt. It was on brand, it was on theme, it wasn't outlandish, but it was, again, thematic to what people were talking about to get the attention of prospects that we hadn't talked to in many years, or in at least the last 6 months. She generated several opportunities out of that. Many people replied just because it was fun and said, you know what, you guys are fun. And we appreciated it. And it actually connected to the pain points, because you can't just send an email because Taylor Swift is popular, which I've seen plenty of those. You need a purpose to it. And that was the tie back, right? It was a purposed email. It had pain points for these prospects, and we drove a little bit of pipeline. I wouldn't say a lot, but we drove a little bit of pipeline for an outbound channel that is still evolving, and our BDRs were able to book some meetings out of it. So it's not a car, but it is Taylor Swift.
But it is Taylor Swift. Well, you know, you get it too.
That helps a little bit. And then I did see the question in there of how long have we been doing SEO? I would contest that we've always been doing SEO, but it's, are you doing it well? And that's the key thing. If you have a website, you're technically doing SEO, but you're not doing it necessarily well. It's, are you optimizing? Are you tweaking things? Are you publishing content frequently? You see results. Depending on how quickly you're publishing things, you could see results within a couple months. If you're working with an agency, hold them to that standard, because you should expect them to deliver to whatever they promise, and make them promise something. They should be getting improvement over a certain time frame. Because I've worked with a certain agency before, I expected them to deliver results within 3 months of us implementing a program when I took over our SEO. We did start to see those results in shorter periods than that. And the results are measurable. If you're doing content, you're doing SEO. The thing is, you need to shift your mindset of, am I doing it well? And am I doing the research to do it even better?
all like super, I just saw the time and I was seeing Taylor Swift in my head. You've lost me. I was haters gonna hate. So no,
I'll pretend to not know her.
oh, it's all good. Yeah, you're good. So let's move on because I'm like, we have 15 minutes and we still have two great questions left. So what are some of the lessons learned? I don't like to call them flops, more learning opportunities. Amanda, why don't you kick us off? What are some things that you've learned over the years or that you don't do anymore? Or any kind of life lesson you want to share with us?
I well, any. I really think it comes down to tracking the things that matter to you and understanding what they are, but also tying that back to your marketing budget. So within my marketing budget, I spend X amount on content creation. I spend X amount on video production. I have a subscription to ERP software blog. I have all these things, and tracking them back to the budget is really what helps with the cost per lead. So I think taking steps back and aligning what your business goals are, what your budget is, what you're spending money on, and then making sure that you're able to track everything properly and get a unique cost per click. Lessons learned is to track it over time and make sure that you're able to easily pinpoint any changes so that you can address them as quickly as possible. That example that I gave of the Google ad spend is when I briefly left Western, and when I came back and revisited those metrics, we've been doing this for far too long. We've been spending money on that campaign for far too long, and we need to stop it right away. So once there were eyes on it, you're able to adjust it. But if you don't make reporting a priority, it's an easy thing to always say, I'll get to that later, and then you just never get to it. And then a year could go by and you look at how much money was spent on a campaign that wasn't producing results. And then you just get mad at yourself when you see what is producing results and what you could have flopped that budget on. So lesson learned is just to always track at least on a monthly basis.
Amen.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Nicole, anything else? Lessons learned? What advice would you give to the listeners today?
Constantly analyzing things. Budget is precious and you're probably not going to get more of it. So make it last, make it impactful. And yeah, I agree. I'm looking at our numbers, daily, weekly, but I'm reporting on them to, the wider org monthly. And so sometimes by the end of the month comes around and you're like, I did do changes and I know it was for a good reason, but now I have to communicate to you what that reason was. So kind of keeping notes and making sure that you remember why you did things, because obviously it was for a reason, but being able to communicate those things as well. Thinking back to some flops, when I first started with Epicor, there was a bit of, I was, backfilling somebody who had left and who had started a content syndication campaign and kind of left it for the next person to take over. And so I had not had at that point any experience with content syndication. So I didn't really know what to do with it and learned the hard way that you need to be well prepared to nurture those leads and know that they're not going to really remember what they downloaded and maybe not be familiar with the brand. So that was definitely a big learning moment for me. And since then, I have used content syndication very differently and made sure that it's targeted, it's specific, I've got my nurture automation all lined up, and we've got BDRs who are well aware that these leads are coming in and they need to work them quickly, and those sorts of things. That was definitely a big learning curve first day of the new job.
That first day, that is definitely something. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us too, though, that we have nurtures and we kind of set it and forget it. So think anyone on the call today, go back and have a look at your nurture and take the advice of the people today and like re-question and re-look and kind of see if anything has slipped. And now you have saved someone else the like heartache of, nurture marketing today, Nicole. So let's
And
keep it going.
going back to what Brandon said about SEO earlier, like even though, yeah, the website is always on, it's not a set it and forget it. It is something that, you constantly have to tweak and maintain and yeah, analyze.
Work
Google's
is
always
never
changing
done.
too. When Google changes, you have to change.
Yeah.
Brandon, why don't you
I,
take us
I,
home?
I have a couple thoughts, not surprisingly. So for me, test and improve is my version of what they said, but I test and improve on everything. Um, there's a data validation to whether something is working. And if as marketers, we don't go into marketing saying I love data, but we should. And I went into this with that's the science behind it, and that's how you're going to differentiate yourself, and that's how you're going to get ahead. Amanda and Nicole said it, so I won't overpreach, but I will overpreach kind of anyways, because that is how you're going to get ahead of your competitors. How you're going to get ahead of your pipeline, and you're going to get ahead overall. The other lessons learned as we think about just the overall channels that we've either seen success or we've had to improve upon is really some events you keep spending money on them, but they don't necessarily drive pipeline. You need to think about, is that money worth it? And is it worth it to spend at that level? And sometimes you have to rip that Band-Aid off and take the risk or reallocate that budget in a different way to make that event successful. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be done. And we've talked a little bit about how we've inherited things, and just because you inherited it doesn't mean that necessarily was the best way to go about it forever. Sometimes they need to refresh it, and that's okay, and that's worth the risk sometimes. And it's fun sometimes to kind of rip that Band-Aid off and see what else you can do with what you're given. We have lots of events to attend with all the different ERPs that we work with, and we try to make sure that we're constantly coming with different ideas. We're going to pull up with at least a Range Rover at Summit and try to compete with Western Computer now, but I'll have to figure something out. But that's the idea of making sure you have some different approach. And no, I'm not actually coming with a Range Rover. I'm kidding.
Partners, come on.
We're going to do something fun. I think we're going to have to talk afterwards on something like that. But we do have different ways to approach now because we're thinking outside the box, and that's the nice thing. The last thing I'll say is, one of the things I learned early is, everyone is publishing a blog, everyone is doing downloadable white papers, everyone's doing things a certain way. It doesn't hurt to try it a different way a couple times, and I've found different tools to do that, and I'm happy to brainstorm with others. I'm not going to share every secret, but there are some different fun ways to put out some fun content, unique content, research studies, things like that. And those have been ways to differentiate your own brand from the many other ones out there. So that has been beneficial, and it's worth it to do the research to spend that time and differentiate yourself ever so slightly, even if you don't have the true different content. It's a slight twist.
Love it. I am not going to add anything because I think those were very wise words to how to robustify your marketing, and taking risks is something that I also hold near and dear to my heart. So we're going to end on that note. Thank you so much to the three of you for being here today. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone else found it enlightening. Is going to have a takeaway, whether it's to scrutinize your SEO, whether it's to look at your nurture marketing, or whether it's to take a risk and come up with something new and try to include a Taylor Swift song into your next campaign, whatever it is, or a Land Rover, Ford Expand, you do you. But I think it's just to take risks and to get there. So I'm going to close off with my normal shameless plug. Please join us next month when we're going to be talking about success stories and how to turn your brand, get more brand advocates. I know that's another way we can generate leads. So that's been a hot topic for a couple of years and always a hard one. So please join us then. And if you were interested in what Amanda had to say, she did a session on LinkedIn not so long ago You can download it, ask for, you can buy it and listen to it. It's an hour and a half. It'll go really fast, and she gives you a lot of good ideas for LinkedIn. So don't be a stranger. Go ask for that. And like the session, have ideas for upcoming ones, want to help us join the community, start a book club. I'm still waiting for someone to get that one going. Come visit us at our website, reach out to us directly, and hope to see you next month. And have a good one, everyone. Thanks again. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.